See the screen. Is this visible? Okay, thank you. So before I continue our discussion with the greedy algorithms, let me share you this URL, which is called algorithm-visualizer.org. It's a very interesting tool to learn the concept of any algorithm or to learn the concept of any problem statement which is being solved using various uh, techniques. So if you can see here, there is backtracking, branch and bound, brute force, divide and conquer, dynamic programming, greedy is also there. So these are some standard designing technique which is used to solve various problems. So let me give you an example. We have not discussed yet these algorithms in greedy, but I think as per my knowledge, the sortings has been done in your class. So let's say if I want to understand the concept of bucket sort, then I can use this and then simply I can play it, or I can also so the first is 467. So this is how it will be put in a various bucket, right? And you can easily understand that how the data is being sorted. Okay. If you know the bucket sort, it's about creating various buckets based on the values or the digit value of that particular number. So you can simply play this and it will keep on so basically, this is helpful when you want to learn or understand the algorithm by using various examples. So this is how it's done. Now the interesting part over here is it's not that it works with the only the predefined data. You can data here. You can change your data here as well. So uh, let me show. So this is a JavaScript code. Remember. So you can change the data. Here they have taken the random values. So it is generating basically some random values and using some functions. So instead of this, you can pass your own data as well. Counting short, say for example, it's a sorting based on the counting the numbers or number of times it is being repeated. So you start with the first number. So your count is 1. Count is incremented 1. Again for 3, count is incremented. So like this, in first instance, counts will be calculated. Now in the second instance, you will update this count according to uh, so it's kind of a cumulative sum you are calculating. So that's what it is being done. And then we'll start putting the numbers from the reverse order, and this is how you will generate. So this is just to share you this very good platform where you can use it, or you can whenever you want to understand some algorithms by example, then this is very good tool for learning it. There is another tool as well, which is Visual Algo. I think I have shared this with while discussing your data structure. So if you want to understand some sorting based algorithms, then you can easily use this. So again, this is predict sort. First step is you check the last digit and put it in a single pull. Then again you check the second last digit, right? So this is how radix dot works. Then you will check the third last digit and so on. So this is also good tool. This is mainly for a data structure based. Let's say you want to understand something like tree or graph. So that is nicely given over here. But this is very generic. Interestingly, if you follow this standard and if you use this library, you can create your own visualizer as well. So basically, these all are created by a programmer like you only. Obviously, you need to understand the library. What are the functions which are used to create? Let's say if you want to create this cell, then what is used? If you want to create a table, then what should be used? So you need to understand the library, obviously. But this is how this is also important. You will find the time complexity as well in most of the readme file. So that is also a helpful tool to understand. So this was about these online tools for understanding or the concepts of various algorithms which are available over there. Okay, so now let us continue with our discussion on knapsack problem. So I think in the previous session we have started with uh, a knapsack problem statement, and specifically we have discussed what are the variations. And one of that variation was fractional knapsack problem. So when you are dealing with the fractional knapsack problem, the problem is that you can take a fraction of that particular object. So or indirectly you can say your object can be broken into pieces. So you can feel a knapsack 100% when you are dealing with a fractional knapsack problem, which may not be possible when you are dealing with 0 1 knapsack problem, because your remaining capacity must match with weight of at least one item if you want to fill the complete knapsack. In case of second half variation, that is 0 1 knapsack. So let us now try to understand the algorithm for fractional knapsack problem. This is using greedy. Most of the time what is being given, you have been given the capital W. Capital W stands for the capacity of knapsack. Also you have been given a value and weight for every item which is available for selection. So value and weight is being given. So 60, 100 and 120 are values for this. Weight are 10, 20 and 30. In case of fractional knapsack problem, the first step is to calculate the value density. Value density means, we have discussed this, value density means that it is a value of an object per unit weight. Now that per unit weight can be anything. That means I want to capture the value of an object per unit weight. So if I want to calculate this, I obviously have to divide V by W. So this is called a value density. I will simply perform this division. So it's 6, 5 and 4. This is what it turns out to be. Now I have a value density of each object available with me. So what I will do, simply I will start from the item with the largest value density, then the second largest, then third largest, then fourth largest. So when you have this kind of a requirement, what is the what do you need? You need an order of value density. That means all items should be sorted on the order of value density, starting from the highest to the lowest. That means you need to sort it in a descending order. So the next step in this algorithm is to sort all the items value density in descending order. So that is the next step. So if you follow this algorithm, so first we know that it's a fractional knapsack problem. So there are V, W, W and N. This V is a vector which represents a value of every item. I say vector means it's an array, because you need to represent the multiple values because there are multiple items. So that means you require an array to represent value of each item. Similarly, you require another array for representing a weight of each item. Then you require capital W, it's a capacity. Capacity means it's a single number, so you need a scalar variable. So that means you require some kind of a variable W to hold the value of capacity. And then finally, the fourth parameter is the number of items or the number of objects. So what are the number of objects available? That is being represented by the number n. So what is the first step? First step is you have to make sure that your knapsack is empty. So that's what we are doing in this first for loop. Basically what we do is we are setting some variable x. Remember when we have discussed this, you are actually interested in value of, or your objective is to calculate the value of xi. So that means initially you are making sure that none of the objects are selected. That means your knapsack is empty. So initially, that's what we do in this first for loop. You simply start from the first item, you go till the last item, and you make xi is equal to 0. Is equal to 0 means that that item is not selected. Next is weight. Now this is basically used for keeping a track of what is the current weight of a knapsack. Because I told you that initially we are making sure your knapsack is empty, that means current weight of knapsack is 0. And x of I for every item is also 0. Then as I told you, next we compute the value density. I think this has to be written with tab. So this is inside this for loop. This statement is inside this for loop. So what we do, we simply run a for loop on this and we calculate value density by V by W. So again, because V is an array, W is an array, so value density has to be an array. So value density of I is V by W. Now, in order to understand this sorting technique, I think I should give you an example. So, let's say we want to sort 5 numbers. So this is my these are my number. Okay. So I want to sort this number. Now there are two ways of sorting the numbers. First is called a direct sorting. In case of direct sorting, what you will do is your output will be the exact numbers. There is something called indirect sorting as well. Now what this indirect sorting will do, instead of which is my numbers, so which is my n, or let's say a, obviously it's an array, so there will be some index, right? Let us make this number something like this. Can you see this presentation, Excel sheet? Okay. So right now we are actually discussing two methods of sorting, that is called direct sorting and indirect sorting. So let's say this is my array. What we call in a direct sorting that exactly this number will get change in position. So it's like you are actually swapping the numbers itself when it comes to the direct sorting. There is something called indirect sorting as well, in which you will actually not sort the numbers, your numbers will be as it is. But you will be sorting an index. So Your output will be something like, what is the first number? It's 2. So your output is 2. Second is 24, so 3. Third is 34, so 4. Fourth is 50, so 0. And fifth is 60, so 1. So what we are doing now, we instead of sorting and numbers, actually we have sorted an index. Obviously, uh, we need to make sure that uh, you are actually comparing the number only whenever you are, let's say if you are implementing a bubble sort, then when you compare x of I with x of I plus 1, here actually you will be swapping, you will compare xi with xi plus 1, but swapping will be done for I and I plus 1, that means for I and j, that's what I mean. So at finally, whenever you are requested or whenever you are interested in a sorted number, you can access that number via x of t of I. Now let me tell you what do you mean. So if this is my x or this is my a, then the final sorted number is given by a of t of I. Obviously, I will be starting with 0, so this is my I value. So T of I means T of 0, that means T of 0 is value 2, and A of 2, that means 11. So this will indirectly point to this. So this will be pointing to 11. Again, I plus plus, so T of I, that means T of 1. T of 1 is 3, then A of 3. A of 3 means 24. So this will indirectly point to 24. So this is how actually you get the shorted number in case of indirect sorting. Is that clear? The difference between direct sorting and indirect sorting? In case of direct sorting, we are actually swapping the number. In case of indirect sorting, we do not swap the number, we do not change its position, we simply change the position of index. So basically, we need to maintain some kind of an auxiliary array. So here my A will not be changed. Here what I will get an output is T. T is an auxiliary array which gives me the sorted order of my numbers. So are you getting this? Now if you try to understand the same example and why do we need indirect sorting or why do we discuss indirect sorting in case of 0 and knapsack problem, there is a reason. Let us again go back to our problem domain. There is a thief. It goes into the supermarket, and he or she is interested in stealing some items. Now, what is the first step it will do? It will require to find out the item with the largest value density and sort it. So obviously that sorting, that particular item will not be actually or physically sorted. What it will do or what he or she will do, they will try to find out some sort of catalog, some sort of data set where actually price and weight of that item is mentioned. So it like a register. So it will go inside that register and tries to find out which item is with the highest value density. So it will simply sort the values in that register, and then based on that register or the index or the table, they will simply pick the item. So item will not be swapped. Item will not get change its position based on the value density. Item will be stayed as it is. Only we are creating a text or an auxiliary array which actually gives us the index of or the value of actual value density of that object so that we can pick it up. So I hope you understood the concept of indirect sorting. That is what we do over here. I think during one of the lab session we will be discussing how do we do the indirect sorting. So this is what value density we calculated, and then we perform indirect sorting on value density. So that will give me some sort of array T. So this is similar to what we have written over here. So that T returns what? It basically returns uh, the value density in sorted order, or the index of value density in the sorted order. So now you have that value of T. That means now you have the value density in sorted order via array T. Now, what is the next task? Next task is to go through that all the items in the order of value density from higher to lower. So you will select the first item. So when you pick the first item, first you need to check whether uh, the current capacity of knapsack, so weight, plus the actual weight of an item which has been picked by this iteration. So actual weight item is I. So basically you need to first, because T of I, that means the first item contains the reference to the highest. If you consider in a same case over here, okay, same case now. So what this first value contains? It contains a reference to the highest density item. So basically this is what it contains. So that is what I am interested in. So now what I will do, I will find out the weight of that item. So T of I is a reference to that item that will give me the index. So I will find out the weight of that particular item. So weight of T of I. Obviously, the weight of the object and current capacity of object, if you add these two together, that has to be less than or equal to the capacity of knapsack, that is capital W. So if you are picking up 100 gram or the object with a value density 6, then you need to check what is the weight of that object. So it's 10. Now is there a capacity, or is the remaining capacity of knapsack is greater than 10? That means the current capacity plus, if I select this item, then what is the weight? 10. It has to be less than the or equal to the capacity of knapsack. So if this is true, that means you can select that item. And when you are selecting that item, that means you are making sure that x of that value is equal to 1. So now we are actually maintaining another column over here, which is actually representing x, and x represents whether the item is selected or not. I think this will answer the query of one of the query which was raised. Okay. So X actually answers the item is selected or not, or what part of an item is selected in final selection. So because I can pick this item entirely, because the current weight of a knapsack plus the weight of that object is less than or equal to capital W. Capital W means, it means the capacity of knapsack. That means the current remaining capacity plus the item which I am selecting, current remaining capacity is, let's say, 100 gram, and the item which I am selecting is of 50 gram. That means I can select that item. So I will simply say x of that item is equal to 1. At the same time, I will also make change into the current capacity of knapsack. Because I have selected the item, that means I am putting that item into a knapsack. That means that weight will add to the current weight of a knapsack. So that's why I'm saying weight is equal to weight plus W of T of I. Is that clear? So this is when we select the item entirely. But let's say now it's a reverse case. That means current remaining capacity of knapsack is, let's say, 50 gram, and the item in the consideration is of 60 gram. But according to the greedy choice property, this item is having the more value density than the remaining one. The remaining one are in the lower order. So this item has more value density. So you have to choose that item only. Because you have a provision of fractional case, that means you can choose a part of that item as well. So now you will have to find out what part of an object is to be selected. How can you do that? 50 gram is the capacity, remaining capacity. 60 gram is an object weight. So obviously you need to find out the remaining capacity is, let's say, the capacity of knapsack is 500 minus remaining was 50. That means the current weight was 450. So 500 minus 450, that will give you 50. Divide by what is the weight of that object? Let's say 60. So 50 divided by 60, that means you will pick uh, 5 by 6 fraction of that object. So that's why this will be some fractional value, whatever it may be. And because now your knapsack is full, you will say the current weight of a knapsack is the actual capacity of knapsack. Now when this is done, that means your knapsack is full. That means now you should not check further items. So that's why second condition in this for loop is your weight has to be less than W. Your weight has to be, now this weight means your current weight and capital W means the total capacity. So at every iteration, you will check this as well, because when your weight becomes W, this loop has to be stopped. There is no point of executing it further. That means because your knapsack is full. So I hope you understood this entire algorithm. Any doubt which you want to ask? Yes, anyone? So in that case, we'll continue with the further discussion. So basically, we are computing the value of x. Now x will be either 1 or 0 or any value between 0 and 1, as this is a fractional knapsack. So if you pass through or if you just traverse through this, initially your weight or capacity is 50. So you will select the first item, the remaining weight is 10. So at this particular item will be selected entirely, so 1. Then the next is weight is 20. Current weight was 10. 10 plus 20 is 30. 30 is less than 50. So that's why this will be selected entirely as per this condition. So again, x of that item is 1. Then next item is this. The weight is 30. What is the current weight of a knapsack? It was initially 10, then 20. That means the current weight is 30. What is the weight of the object? That is also 30. So 30 plus 30, that is 60. So if I select this item entirely, then weight of the knapsack will be 60. Actual capacity of knapsack is 50. That means this weight or this object cannot be selected entirely. So you need to check the part of it. Obviously the remaining capacity is 20, because the total is 50, current is 30, so total minus current is 20. So 20 divided by 30, that will be the fraction which you will be choose. That will be 0.66. So final value of x for all this is the case. Now, what is the importance of this? Basically, you can use this value to compute the total profit which is gained by selection. Because this is selected entirely, so the profit will be also entirely. So 1 into 60, that is 60. Again, this is 1, so profit is 100. So 100 into 1, so that is 100. And this is 0.66. So 0.66 into 120, that turns out to be 80. So the total profit of a knapsack will be the summation of all this. That is true. Right? So I hope you understood this. Simplest approach of solving a knapsack problem. First, you need to make sure the knapsack is empty. You will also keep a track of current weight of an AppSec just to make sure that you are not going beyond the capacity. First step is to calculate the value density of every object. Second step is to perform a sorting on value density in descending order. And the third step is traversing an item in sorted order and making a selection. And also at the same time, you are checking or you are updating the value of X, that is your output variable. If we discuss about the time complexity, then if you remember the step count, when you have single for loop, the time complexity is always big of n. So time complexity for this for loop will be big of n because it is running n times. Then this is a constant, weight is equal to 0. Again you are having one for loop which is you are computing a value density. So it's a single for loop, so again it's big of n. Then you are doing the sorting. If you remember any sorting technique, bubble sort, selection sort, quick sort, merge sort, any sorting technique, your time cannot be better than big of n LGN. So let us assume that you are using a merge sort or a quick sort. Then your time complexity for sorting this number is n LGN. Then again you have this for loop, but you are running it maximum n times. Again, we are considering the worst case scenario. In worst case, this loop will run n times. Let's say your knapsack is so large that it can occupy all the objects or all the items are available. Let's assume that. So in that case, this loop will execute n times. So when it executes n times, it means that there is no under nested loop. That means the time complexity of this loop is also big of n. So this is n, this is constant, this is n, this is nLGN, and again this is n. So if you add all these two together, then the resultant time complexity will be the maximum of these two, that is big of nLGN. I hope this is clear, the time complexity. Any doubt in this? Yes. Okay, thank you. So the next problem statement in the sequence is it is called an activity selection problem. So let us try to understand the problem itself first. It's an activity selection. That means you have a series of activities and each activity has some start time and finish time association. Like you have classes between 9 to 12, then you have some sort of appointment with some doctor, let's say 1 to 2, or then you have, let's say, sports related activities between 3 to 4 or 5, something like that. So something sort of, so each activity has some start time and some finish time association. uh, Objective is, or the problem is, to find out a maximum size set of mutually compatible activities. Now, mutually compatible activities. Mutually compatible activity means that two activities should not clash with each other. When I say clash, it means that it should not overlap. Overlap means that start time of one activity has to be greater than or equal to finish time of the other activity. Then only we can say that these two activities are mutually compatible. You can't have a 9 to 12 classes and 11 to 2. Let's say you have another appointments with some doctors, etc. So these two activities are not mutually compatible. Reason is that the start time of one activity, that is 11, is less than the finish time of the other activity, that is 12. So these two activities cannot be selected. You have to select either of these two. Either you can go for 9 to 12 classes, or you can go for 11 to 1 appointment with doctors. You can't select both of it because they are not mutually compatible. Okay. Now the problem is you have been given a series of such activities with start time and finish time of each activity. You have to find out a maximum size set. Maximum size set means that after you execute the entire algorithm, the total number of activities has to be maximized. So if let us say there are 10 activities throughout the period and you are making the selection, and based on compatibility issues or based on compatibility check, you have identified there are, if I select this 4 activity, then this is, or this is one sort of selection where I can select this 4 activity. Another can be another point of selection or another solution in which I can select 5 activity, because ultimately our objective is to perform a selection based on 2 activities should not uh, overlap. So obviously there will be multiple selections, so or multiple solution possible. In greedy we call it a feasible solution, because each of these solution is actually a solution and it do not violate any input constraint, because all the activities in the selection are mutually compatible. But the problem is you have to maximize that number. That means the number of activities in which in your selection set should be highest. That should be your solution. In generic term, you can say you should make your selection in such a way that you can perform maximum number of activities. So uh, you should skip a minimum number of activities throughout your entire day. So that is our objective. So let us try to understand this, also known as job sequencing problem. Uh, there is a set is given. Set means a list, array, whatever you can say, which is starting from the first to end. First means it's a first activity, second activity, and there are n such activities. The another constraint obviously is that each activity want the same resource used by one at a time. Your class also requires your presence, and the appointment with doctor also requires your presence, because it's your appointment. You are supposed to show something, or you are supposed to diagnosis for something. Even at the class also, you are supposed to attend. So there is a common resource which is to be used by both the activity. That is obviously the constraint. Otherwise, there is no point of further discussion. If your doctor appointment is for someone else and class is to be attended by someone else, then there is no clash, because both of them can do whatever they are required to do. But there exists a overlap, there exists a clash when the resource is common. So each activity want the same resource used by one at a time. Secondly, each activity has some start time Si, some finish time Fi, and start time is always less than or equal to Fi. If selected, that means if you are performing that activity, then activity I will take place during half open interval Si to Fi. Half open means that if my Si value is 2 and Fi value is 5, then my activity will place between 2 to 5. That means at 5 another activity can start. That means it is assumed that this activity will finish before 5. It will finish before 5. So another activity can start with 5. So that is what it means, half open interval. Here you are actually required the exact value of Si, and here it is less than Fi. Problem is to find the maximum size set of mutually compatible activities. That means out of all the feasible solutions, you need to choose that solution which can maximize the total number of activities which can be performed at once. Right? That is the objective. So we'll think about the solutions In the next session, we will be discussing how can we solve this problem statement. You should also think about it because uh, what are the ways or possible ways to solve an activities. You can just think on it. In the next session, we will discuss further. Any doubt till this point in this problem statement? Okay, so I think I will stop here. Continue with the next session.